The best way to start the ketogenic diet is to eat protein and fats and to do so in about a 1-to-1 ratio. Fat and carbohydrates together is a recipe for overeating. When I did fall with 1,085, that made me rethink some things. Everything I do, I'm always talking about food. It's because I love it. Welcome to Saturday School, everybody. Page 43. I hope you're on it because that's the page that I'm on. And if you're not on the same page as me, you're not going to know what the hell's going on. But we're talking about the keto diet here today. And hopefully people had a successful World Carnivore Month. Or if you haven't followed that, hopefully you're listening to this and hopefully you can start to adopt some of the things I'm going to mention here today. One of the things I want to kind of start out with is to say that what I'm going to talk about in today's video is basically the start of a ketogenic diet. Where should you start? How do you get this thing going? Because sometimes these kind of diets can be really difficult. When you're not eating any carbohydrates, you can be like, oh my God, this is going to be really difficult. But before I get into that, let's talk about maybe some reasons why. Is a keto diet superior to any other style of diet when it comes to, let's just say when it comes to weight loss? I would say anything that you can stick to that helps you lose body fat and allows you to hold on to some muscle mass is probably a great plan. And there's probably really not a lot of reasons, probably a waste of time to sit here and duke it out and to fight over which one's better. I have my own personal views on it. I do think that a keto diet is better, but the reason why I think it's better is because I enjoy it. I like eating fat and protein. It's not that I don't like eating carbohydrates. I enjoy them. But fat and carbohydrates together is a recipe for overeating. And overeating is where my fight is. My fight is not in dyes that are in food. My fight is not in all these other areas. What I'm trying to look at is how do I get somebody on a plan that they can actually stick to? And that can vary so much. I've worked with a lot of different people over the years. I've helped a lot of different people. I've had some great success stories and I've had some not so great unsuccessful stories where I've helped people and I just haven't been able to help them enough or haven't been able to, really get through to them to be able to assist them. And then they went a different route. And luckily, some of those people have found other people to give them help and they had some success. And some of those people, unfortunately, have also just still been stuck, which that's going to happen because it's not just the diet, it's who we get the information from. And a keto diet, in my opinion, is just another great option. So there are different ways that you can lose weight. But my best friend from high school recently contacted me. He's going to be 50 years old. And he was like, hey, tell me what to do. I'm thinking about getting creatine. I'm thinking about hitting the gym and I'm thinking about this and that. Those are all great things. Those are all great things to think about. But in knowing him over many years, I was just thinking to myself, man, if I could just inject that dude with, 100 days of a 500 calorie a day deficit, everybody would look at him and they would agree. They would be like, that dude's shredded. That dude looks great. Because my friend, he's not fat. He also doesn't have like a crazy amount of muscle mass or anything, but if we just basically stripped the body fat down, he would look awesome. Just like a lot of other people, if you just simply strip away a decent amount of body fat, you're probably going to look pretty lean. I mean, even think of, guys that power lift that are pretty big, not the 300, 400 pounders and stuff like that, but guys that are 240, 260, 270, those ranges, those dudes knock off 20 to 40 pounds of body fat on some of those people and boom, they're going to look insane. I mean, even for some of those guys, to just lose 20 pounds of body fat over the course of 6 months or a year, they could really take their time because they want to hold on to their strength and they want to hold on to their muscle mass. They could do so, and they would look awesome. And a keto diet is something that I've been utilizing for many, many years. I've utilized it during my powerlifting career. I used it before my powerlifting career. I didn't always utilize it. Like when I was at my heaviest and stuff like that, I ate a lot of protein, and I also ate a lot of junk. I would make sure I got my protein requirement for the day, and then I would just, eat some candy bars and eat some ice cream. And that wasn't like a daily occurrence, but it was a weekly occurrence. And I'd probably do that once or twice a week, have almost like a cheat day, which I don't even know what I was cheating from because I wasn't on some sort of strict plan in the first place. But when I did fall with 1,085 squat, that made me kind of rethink some things. That made me look into, hey, you did this keto diet back when you were in high school in like the mid 90s. It was really impactful for you. It really helped you a lot. So let's go back to it. Why do I keep going back to it? Why do I continue to recommend it? Because it's a diet that, in my opinion, if you can get in ketosis, you'll have better adherence with this diet than you would with any other diet that you can think of. It sometimes takes 2 or 3 weeks to even get into a ketogenic state for some people. Not just to produce ketones, but to get to like 0.3 millimolars of ketones, which is you're pricking your finger. Now, some of this stuff, it doesn't matter that much, but it is one of the only measurable ways that we have to be able to tell if you're like in ketosis. There's a breath thing that you can do that can check your ketones. And there's also a pee stick. You can pee on this like stick. And if you pee, if the stick turns purple, you're pregnant. Now, if the stick turns purple, you're in ketosis, or you're at least peeing out some ketones. None of these things really matter that much. What matters is that you remove the carbohydrates from your diet and you get your body to run off of dietary fat. Once you kind of do that, then you can play around with the dietary fat that you are consuming, and you can work on now having your body starting to chew up some of its own body fat in addition to some of that dietary fat that you eat. And that's where the keto diet can get to be tricky, because when you're trying to balance that out, you're trying to figure that out, you might start to feel pretty hungry. And so you have to, in my opinion, the best way to start the ketogenic diet is to eat protein and fats, and to do so in about a 1-to-1 ratio. So that's 1 gram of fat per every gram of protein. If you stay in that 1-to-1 ratio, you should have balanced energy because you should be eating enough fat. If for some reason that doesn't feel great, you might want to be even more like 2-to-1, 2 grams of fat per every pound, for every gram of protein, 2 grams of fat for every gram of protein. And that might be something like you have some eggs and you also have some bacon and you throw some butter on the eggs, something like that. Ribeye steaks, maybe 85-15 or 80-20 ground beef, stuff like that. And that's how you're going to start your ketogenic diet. You're going to start your ketogenic diet with a lot of fat. And you're also going to start your ketogenic diet, in my opinion, the best way to do it is to not count or track any calories, just to eat. No fasting, no tracking, no nothing. Just eat. And just simply follow this one rule. Do not eat any carbs. That's it. That's your goal. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it that simple. Don't eat any carbs. But what about bread? What about bread? What about fruit? What about honey? Do not eat any carbohydrates. Now, when you look at a nutritional label and you look at certain foods, there's going to be things that say 3, there's going to be things that say 2, and they're going to say this and that, like that they have a little bit of carbohydrate in them. That's not really what I'm talking about. You do want to avoid carbs as much as possible in the beginning phases of this diet, and for just keto purposes in general, you want to keep the carbohydrates very, very, very low. But you can have probably up to like 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates in a day. Some of those could be like deliberate carbs even, and you would still probably be in a ketogenic state as long as you're eating enough fat and as long as you are, we'll get into the caloric deficit thing in a little bit. But anyway, I think that keto is the way to go. I think it reshapes your brain. I think it reshapes your mind. And I think that the diet promotes the diet. Whereas if I wake up, I have some oatmeal and I have, 6 egg whites with a whole egg and a little bit of orange juice, and I go off and I train at the gym and everything. And I'm doing kind of like this bodybuilder diet, and I have some chicken breast at lunch with some rice and all these things. Those are all excellent foods. And the carbohydrates will give you some energy for the workout. The carbohydrates will give you some replenishment after the workout. It can help drive nutrients into the muscle cells. So if you have your carbohydrates with some magnesium and some salts and different things like that, you can get some nice benefits from it. You can recover from your workouts, potentially maybe a little bit easier, and all these different cascade of things can happen for you. But when you're on a ketogenic diet, you don't really have to worry about this kind of constant flow of carbohydrates. You also, I don't think it matters as much for like your retention of your protein and your retention of your muscle mass. It doesn't seem like you need to be hitting your body with this cadence of protein either. Although you're going to want to eat some fats and proteins several times throughout the day, unless you're messing around with some fasting. So to me, like a keto diet just sort of sets you free a bit. And so does fasting. Fasting really sets you free. It keeps you so you're not so tethered to food. You're not so tethered to your diet. I heard someone the other day say, oh yeah, when I do that, I kind of go hypo a little bit. Or when I go and do that, I always like to bring some honey with me. And I always like to have some carbs in my backpack, when I'm going on a hike, or I like to have some carbs with me when I'm lifting, because sometimes I don't feel great. And all those things are fine. It's good that you learn yourself. It's good that you learn how you feel and everything. But you won't feel anything like that. You won't feel anything remotely close to that when you're on a ketogenic diet. The only thing that you may notice on a ketogenic diet is every once in a while, you might not feel as strong. You might feel like a little hollow. You might feel a little soft with your lifting and so on. But to me, that's usually like a pressure thing. That's usually like you don't have enough salt. You don't have enough sodium in your diet. And so crank up that salt, crank up that sodium. You can utilize my hydration product from Within You brand, or you can just, really salt your foods quite a bit. Baking soda supposedly works really well. I haven't really messed around a lot with that, but I'm hearing really nothing but good things on that being something to, kind of make you feel a little bit better when you're on a ketogenic diet. But keep in mind here, we were talking about starting a ketogenic diet. Like, how do you get started? First thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove all carbohydrates from your diet. If that means that you have to remove carbohydrates from your pantry and your fridge and stuff like that, then, maybe that's something that you start to do. That also could be unreasonable for you, because you could have other family members that still enjoy those foods and they don't want to go on that journey with you. But the first thing in a ketogenic diet is to lower your carbohydrate intake. Let's just take that carbohydrate intake and let's just sink it down. I would say just go under 50 for a handful of days and kind of see how that goes. And then, if you want to kind of baby step it in, maybe go under 30. and then do your best from there to work your way into, keeping the amount of carbohydrates per day, keeping them under like 20, the best that you can. But again, they kind of sneak up in everything, and we're not really counting. I don't count carbohydrates that are in like vegetables. To be quite honest with you, at this point, I don't really even look at food labels anymore. So if I'm going to eat like pickles and olives and stuff, I don't count any of that as like a real carbohydrate thing. The main thing is I'm not eating bread. I'm not eating croutons. I'm not drinking a soda that has 60 grams of sugar in it. I'm not eating, cereal, shit like that. Like you get rid of all that stuff. Pizza, ice cream. So I think one of the best ways to get started on a ketogenic diet is just to start to eat foods that have fat and protein in them, that are absent of carbohydrates. Eat foods that have fat and protein in them, and do so for 2 weeks, and eat as much of that stuff, not as you want even, but as much of it as you can. Like literally, eat a lot of it. Get used to it. Make yourself a few omelets that have cheese and bacon and butter. If you like that, if that's the kind of food that you like, then cook that up. Or if you'd rather have hamburger patties, cook that up. If you like things that are fatty, get a ribeye, get 80-20 ground beef and throw some cheese and throw some bacon on it. Ryan and I were talking a few weeks ago, and we're like, hey, you know what? Like, I love cake and ice cream and pizza. I love all those things. But how good is an omelet? How good is like a bacon and cheese omelet or a sausage and cheese omelet? Those kinds of things are they're absolutely delicious. It's a different flavor. So what I would like for most people to do when they start a ketogenic diet is get used to the foods, get used to reading those food labels, get used to seeing that there's hardly any carbohydrate at all in your food, and that it's primarily made up of fats and proteins. If you want to get down to the X's and O's of exactly, how everything should be, then we're looking at like close to a 1-to-1 ratio of protein to fat in each meal. I forget what that exact stat is, but I think that you end up like in a 60 percentile range for your fat calories when you are 1 gram, per every gram of, 1 gram of fat per every gram of protein, because the fat calories are 9 and the protein calories are 4. So just something to keep in mind. And if you want to be a little bit more on the clinical ketosis side, you might want to go 1.5 grams of fat for every 1 gram of protein that you have, or you might want to go with 2 grams of fat. Somewhere in that range should get you, the right calculations so your body starts to produce these ketones. I want to make sure I don't fail to mention that I did say it takes about 2 weeks to get into a ketogenic state and to get your body to be like running off these ketones. So there could be a delayed response from your body a little bit. There could be a delayed response and you may not feel very good. There could be a 3 to 5 day phase where you don't feel awesome. But again, at those times, make sure you're taking in your electrolytes, make sure you're getting in your salts and stuff like that. You don't have to necessarily purchase any electrolytes from anybody. You could use baking soda and you can use salt. You can salt your food, and you can have small amounts of baking soda, just like a quarter of a teaspoon here and there. Maybe once or twice a day with a good amount of salt to make sure that you're staying hydrated, because sometimes on a ketogenic diet, you seem to lose a little bit of your power and a little bit of your little bit of pep in your step. But again, that is only for a short period of time. Now, that would happen on a lot of different types of diets. You get yourself deep into a caloric deficit and you're going to feel like shit. So this happens on a ketogenic diet, but it also happens on a lot of other diets. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is this kind of management of fats on a ketogenic diet. Some people go, quote unquote, hog wild, with their fat consumption on a ketogenic diet, and they dump a lot of oil on stuff, and they just go a little overboard with the amount of fat that they're utilizing. Just having more and more fat is not exponentially going to be more helpful in terms of like performance enhancement. However, having more fats might make it easier for you to stay on the diet, because fats are satiating and they're satisfying. And if I was trying to look at protein versus fat a little bit, protein has a high satiety rating. It can help fill you up really well. And you don't need a crazy amount of protein to fill you up really well. Like a pretty fairly lean, a pound or so of meat that has a good amount of protein and fats in it is going to be quite filling. And even the largest person, even the person that can eat a lot, you start to get 1 pound, maybe 2 pounds. Like you start to get into that range, and they're like, I think I'm good. I think this is going to allow me to kind of control my appetite for the next, few hours or so, because it's going to be satisfying and it's going to be very satiating at the same time. So that's the way I like to see most people start out, is with the carbs super low and the fats a little bit on the higher side, and the protein maybe just a little bit below that. Just going to quickly go over some foods that are kind of fair game on a ketogenic diet. Any sort of low carb yogurts. I like 000 yogurt. Has hardly any fat in it, so that's going to be something that we'll have to talk about more. How to kind of manage the fats and different things on a ketogenic diet. But not everything I consume just has crazy amounts of fat in it, because I don't think that that's helpful all the time. But anyway, sugar or very low sugar content yogurts that are cranked with a good amount of protein. I'll eat some cottage cheese here and there as well. Cottage cheese, yogurt, some of these things are going to have some carbohydrates in them, but some of them are still fairly low. I personally don't drink milk, so milk's not part of it. I don't think milk would be a good choice for a ketogenic diet, because it usually has 11 to like 13 grams of sugar per every 4 or 8 ounces or whatever it is. So that might not be a great idea. I would say skip the milk. But some people do utilize heavy cream. This, again, would be something that you would want to utilize in the first couple weeks, and you'd want to utilize it maybe in the first month or so of a ketogenic diet. And then after that, it might be something that you kick out later on, because you might want to reduce some of your fat calories. Any type of meat and any type of eggs. Whenever I say any type of meat, people just think like ground beef and steak, and then they can't think outside of that for some reason.
Being able to handle the stresses of your day, the stress of exercise, and being able to stick to your nutrition plan takes good rest and good quality sleep the night before. And if your mouth is opening during sleep, or if you're snoring, well, your sleep quality is compromised. That's why we've partnered with the best mouth tape in the game, Hostage Tape. If you have a beard, it's going to stay on. If you have a CPAP, it's going to stay on. This tape is not going to fall off your mouth like most other tapes do when you're asleep. And to enhance the way you breathe through your nose, they also have nose strips.
Head over to hostagetape.com/powerproject, where you can get a 3-month supply of Hostage Tape for only 65 cents a night. On top of that, you're going to receive a free pack of nose strips as well as a bedside tin. Again, that's at hostagetape.com/powerproject. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
You got ground beef, you got steak, you also have lamb, you have pork, you have elk, you have bison. Like, there's a lot of options when you start to really think about it. And then also seafood. Seafood is fantastic. A lot of seafood that I eat just comes from a tin. I eat oysters. I have cod livers. I eat sardines. I eat really a wide range of a lot of different types of foods. Recently, we had Robert Sykes, aka Keto Brick. He got down to 3.9% body fat. Recently, we had him on the podcast and we talked a lot about keto. So you guys are going to want to make sure that you check that out as well. Robert is somebody who's been utilizing the keto diet for the last 10 years. I don't think he's had a carbohydrate in the last 10 years, which is pretty cool and pretty remarkable. For myself, I've been a few months off of carbohydrates as well. All the sprinting, the running, the jumping, the lifting, all the different things you're seeing me do, they're all done without carbohydrate. I don't feel sick. I don't feel tired. I don't feel weak. I actually feel quite the opposite. I feel like I'm feeling better all the time. I feel like I'm getting faster all the time. I feel like my performance is getting better. And I'm not going to attribute that to the ketogenic diet and say the ketogenic diet is doing all these things for me. However, I do think that the ketogenic diet is allowing me to, from a mental perspective, feel really good. And from a mental perspective, to have a lot of energy. But also, I think that it is a contributor to why my body feels so good. So my body doesn't feel beat up or banged up. We've had some guests come in here and they're like, oh, Mark, you're my age. You know what it's like. You know this, you know that. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because I feel pretty damn good. I feel great. My body is stiff, from all the years of like heavy lifting and so on. And that's something I'll have to work on unwinding. And that's going to probably take a while, but I am feeling really good. I feel strong and I feel like I'm more capable now with all kinds of different things than I've ever been before. Got anything to add over there, Ryan?
Yeah. How does one handle dining out or like social events, maybe holiday get-togethers while they're doing keto?
One of the best things you can do, because, recently I got in a conversation with Russell Buddy, and Russell was saying, hey, well, I don't think you did a lot of fasting to lose weight in the beginning. And I was like, wow, shit, he's right. That actually is very true. And I do preach fasting, right? I also preach that people should learn how to cook at home. But I kind of forget that the beginning stages of all this, a lot of this did start with me. I would dine out. I would eat out here and there. And I did that, probably multiple times a week years ago. And now, people have the convenience of DoorDash and things like that. It's like, well, why not talk about that side of things as well? So one thing I would say is that, when you get food from a restaurant, you don't know what you're getting. And you could probably do a better job at home. And the food is more expensive. However, it's really nice to have somebody else cooking up the food for you. However, it's really fun to go out and eat with friends and stuff like that. And so when you do dine out, what I used to do is a lot of times I would order like more than one dinner. So if I went to a restaurant that had food that I really liked, that I really enjoyed, that was on my diet, let's just say they had a really good steak that I liked. Well, I might order one for there and I might order one to go because I might have one the next day or something like that. And so, do your best to find restaurants that will accommodate you. Don't get yourself into a real compromised position. That would be the number one thing that I would say. So, what are some places that you don't want to go to a place where your request is so odd and different that you can't enjoy everything with everybody else? And that would be like a Italian restaurant. Things could probably get kind of weird, although I guess you could potentially get like a Caesar salad, maybe. But that's just like, that's such a bummer at an Italian restaurant. I don't think that's that great, but you could blend in if you had to, if you had to just, for that one night, just be screwed because you're at your son's birthday party and everyone decided to go to like some Italian place for it or whatever. You could probably make it work. But a lot of those Italian places, they do have like steaks and stuff like that. And so you might be able to, make your way around it that way. But Other places to avoid would be like Chinese food. It's going to be really difficult to have to enjoy Chinese food. You know, I guess you can get like steamed chicken and broccoli or something like that, but that just sounds gross. And you're really not participating the same way as everybody else. But on the flip side, there are other places that you can consider that probably make your diet actually easier. So any sort of breakfast place, you know, breakfast places are almost always serving, you know, some type of egg, some type of bacon or a sausage. And you have kind of everything you need right there. And so I do think when you do go to a restaurant, I think it's more common now, and I don't think there's anything to feel weird or bad about. But if you do feel weird or bad about, like, you know, having a very specific order, just order it regular and then just push stuff off your plate, you know? Sometimes that's what I do. It depends on the place that I'm at. If it doesn't seem like a place that's going to be like, you know, easier to order, then I'll just kind of go with the flow and I'll order a burger and I'll just toss the bun. I won't even ask them not to give me the bun, because sometimes that like confuses people like crazy for some reason. But yeah, that's the best way to handle going out to eat. And going out to eat can make it really fun. So my brother, he goes to In-N-Out Burger quite a bit. He loves the flavor of those patties, and he ends up there quite a bit. And when I first started doing a keto diet, I would go to breakfast probably 2 or 3 days a week, just because when you go to a restaurant, like I could cook stuff up at home, I can make things outstanding, but I can't quite match how good an omelet can be from a restaurant. At least that's my own experience. So bon appetit, you know, go out to eat and enjoy your food with your friends. You don't really have to make a lot of changes. The only thing you have to do is just not eat the bread when they serve it at the table, but have a strategy for that. You know, think about that before you even go to the restaurant. And one thing that I like to do, and one thing I like to do for people that I help, is I like to tell people, hey, before you go out to eat something. You know, like eat like a chicken breast, or have some chicken thigh, or have a protein shake. You know, have like a 2-scooper of a total carnivore shake before you go out, because you don't want to be like starving. You know, when you sit down, you don't want to be like, where's the waiter? Where's the waitress? You know, you don't want to be like all amped up. You want to be a little bit more chill and reserved, and you can just wait for your meal, and you don't have to really worry about, because a lot of times you're going to be enticed by somebody ordering the mac and cheese and all the other bullshit that they want to order.
What are good like food substitutes or alterations that somebody can make to stay keto? Maybe you could go into things like sweeteners or just other substitutes that somebody can make in order to adhere to their keto diet.
Yeah, you know, I think there's a lot of different things that can be at your disposal. So, I mean, we can get into like a whole sucralose thing and all these different things, but again, with the keto diet, you know, one of the points of the keto diet is to, in my opinion, is to reduce the carbohydrate, and also to work on, over a period of time, you're going to be working on consuming a little bit less energy so that you can manage your body weight over a period of time. And when I think about that, I think about all the different components that come into that. And a huge component of that is going to be you being satisfied by your meals, you having food and drinks and stuff that you really, really like. So you can have things like Crystal Light. You can have things like diet sodas. One thing I would say about diet soda, though, is be very cautious with your diet soda having caffeine in it. It's actually kind of a pain in the ass to try to find diet sodas that don't have caffeine in them. It's hard to find diet anything that doesn't have caffeine in it. It's like everything's sort of like quote unquote laced with caffeine. So, and the reason why I mention that is like, I don't think it's a great idea to be like consuming caffeine all day. In terms of sweeteners, yeah, you have things like Splenda, You have stevia. You have monk fruit. Some people might hate those things. They might not love the way they taste. You also have allulose. I think the protein shakes that we offer at Within You brand, I think are awesome. And I think they really help people a lot when it comes to the potential of having a sweet tooth. We make steak shakes, and we also make total carnivore shakes. The steak shakes are made with whey protein, collagen protein, as well as egg protein and beef protein. And the total carnivore shakes are made with beef protein, collagen protein. They don't have any whey, and they have no egg in them. The steak shake has MCT oil in it. The total carnivore shake has tallow. Both have liver, kidney, heart, spleen, pancreas in them to kind of titrate some nutrients into your diet. And so those are things you can utilize to really stifle some sweet tooth issues that you may have. Also, the company Keto Brick is something you're going to want to look into. I really enjoy the Keto Brick a lot. The Primal Fudge, that is absolutely die for. That's the best flavor that they've ever made, I think. They have, and that's a combo that I did with them with my chocolate total carnivore shake. They also make one with me called Bell's Brownie Batter, and that one came out really great too. They make a cake pop one, which is another total carnivore product, the vanilla malt. But that company has a lot of great options. And then also you have carnivore crisps. I've seen tutorials, I've seen tutorials of people making some of these like themselves, just at their house and just slicing some meat up real thin and just putting it into your air fryer and kind of having some meat come out that way. But if you want the convenience of just ordering it, you could check out Carnivore Crisps. You can use the code MarkBell and it should get you a percentage off. Those are absolutely amazing products. Those are great. And, let's not forget, the keto diet is not that restrictive. Like, it sounds restrictive. It sounds, it's like, oh man, like I got to get rid of. Yeah, you are getting rid of, you're getting rid of bread, and you're getting rid of rice, and you're getting rid of pasta, and you're getting rid of things that are not only tasty, but you're getting rid of like these carbohydrates that sometimes really help all the foods kind of come together. I think you think about like a teriyaki bowl or something like that. When you think about like some carbs or some rice, right? It's like, man, that really does come together really well. You got the vegetables, you got the chicken, you got the teriyaki sauce, and you got the rice, and everything just comes together really well. Or even something like a sushi roll, everything kind of comes together really well. Sure, you can have, sushi where you just have sashimi where you're just eating just straight up fish or whatever. But it's so much better. Well, not for everybody, but for most people, they're going to think that it's better when they have the sushi with the rice. The texture of it and everything is just different. Or poke, like poke is, beautiful. So yeah, you are giving up some stuff when you do this. But when you have a poke bowl or you try to make a burrito bowl, you're not having a burrito anymore. You're not having it wrapped in a tortilla. You're having a burrito bowl. And your burrito bowl, if you're keto, is going to be like chicken and steak and salsa and maybe some sour cream, maybe some guacamole, maybe some cheese, maybe all three of those things, because it's just going to taste really good. And maybe the substitute for the rice and for the beans is maybe just some vegetables.
I want to have a serious conversation with you about your balls, and I'm being serious here. On this podcast, we talked about a lot of things to help men improve the health of their penis, because it's important. And your balls have very thin skin. This is true. You can touch them right now, and it's pretty thin. Women do a lot of things to take care of their vaginal health, and men, we don't really think about the things that we put right directly on our balls, like our boxers. A lot of popular brands out there have chemicals that are literally touching your balls. Think about this. When you're in the gym sweating, when you're at work sitting, when you're doing all these things could be permeating into your scrotum. Things like BPA, phthalates, pesticides, insecticides, toxic dyes, toxic fertilizers, formaldehyde, all of which could lead to and could exacerbate lower testosterone, erectile dysfunction, and potential infertility. That's why we've partnered with NADS. And NADS is made with 100% organic cotton and no toxic dyes. So instead of putting just anything on your manhood, it's a good idea to get your hands on some NADS. And Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at nadsunder.com. That's NADS under.com. And at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 15% off your entire order. Again, that's at nadsunder.com. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Yeah, there's a departure on the keto diet from certain things, but it ain't that bad. And there's also a website called Ruled, RULEDME.com. Ruled.me, it's called. That website has a lot of great recipes for ketogenic diets. And then there's also like so many keto books, and there's so many people have written keto cookbooks and so on. And then also on Instagram, and just kind of all over the internet, there's a lot of options for keto pizza. There's something called Fathead Pizza, which is really good. There is keto cheesecakes. My wife is always kind of making like keto chocolate things, and it'll have some stuff in it. It'll have like dates, and it might have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's like not the healthiest thing, but it still keeps me on point. It still keeps me in ketosis. And so there's also Legendary Foods has, they make tasty pastries. They have like a Pop-Tart type thing. They have a sticky bun type thing. And both of those options are amazing. Man, I haven't had a regular Pop-Tart in so long, but I can't even imagine. Like at this point, I just don't think a regular Pop-Tart would compare to what they made at Legendary Foods. Those Pop-Tarts they're awesome. At 20 grams of protein, 180 or 190 calories. Absolutely amazing products. I had something more recently called a David bar. David bars are nice. They have chocolate chip. They got peanut butter. They got peanut butter chocolate chip. These are all made with these with things like allulose. There's a company called RX Sugar. RX Sugar actually just sells like straight up allulose that you could utilize in certain recipes. They have like a brownie. They have like a little bucket of this like stuff that you scoop it into a bowl and you mix it with some water. You put it in your microwave and it turns into a brownie. So there's a lot of accommodating things that are great when it comes to a ketogenic diet. RX Sugar, they also have some treats. They have like almost these chocolate bars that are almost like a Twix bar. And they make a few different versions of them, a few different flavors of them, and they're amazing. RX Sugar also, I just keep thinking of all these things, so we keep going here, but RX Sugar also makes like a vanilla maple syrup. They have regular maple syrup. All these things are made with allulose. They have a chocolate syrup, which only has like 3 ingredients. Allulose is like a sugar, a sweetener that I think is considered like a natural, plant. It just comes from a plant, I believe. I don't think it's a sugar alcohol, but it does kind of work like a sugar alcohol in your body. So it can make you gassy. It can bother your stomach, but if you have it in reasonable amounts, you're not going to run into any issues. My wife has made a lot of like keto pancakes utilizing some of our protein powders. So there's just the options are they just keep going, and again, I'm thinking Legendary Foods and even Quest. Quest makes like crackers, Legendary Foods makes chips. They have chips that are like pizza chips. They got nacho cheese chips. They have like Cool Ranch type chips. I mean, they just got like all these different flavors, and they're very modest with the calories. Not a lot of fat in them. That's the one thing to really watch out for, though, when you are looking at keto stuff, is that, number one, I wouldn't trust any of these companies with like your diet. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to ever advocate that you eat a lot of these things. Having like one of these things a day, I think is fine. But to really trust any of these, if you want your diet to be on point, then eat meat and eggs. You know what I mean? If you care about your diet enough, you're going to eat meat, eggs, and maybe some vegetables here and there. However, if you want to go off plan slightly and have a slight deviation from that, that's when you would eat something processed. That's when you would maybe order a steak shake from me, or you would order a keto brick from Robert Sykes. Those types of things. But none of those things should make up like a large percentage of your diet. But there's a lot of different ways to do this. And what I try to share with people is try to turn some of this into a hobby. So the best way to get started on a ketogenic diet is for you to gamify it. I think it would be important for you to get Keto Mojo. Keto Mojo is the thing that you prick your finger with to check your ketones every day. The bitch of that is like, okay, it's a little inconvenient. You got to prick your finger and you got to squeeze the blood onto a little thing to get your reading. And the Keto Mojo product is not that expensive, but the little tester strips are kind of pricey. And so it's a little bit annoying. But remember what I said about the ketogenic diet. It takes about 2 weeks to get into ketosis. So if you bump yourself the hell out of ketosis by binging or just really going off plan, well, it's like a video game. You got to start back over at the beginning, man. And so that's why I think you can gamify this stuff, and you can prick your finger and be like, okay, cool, I'm 0.3, I'm still in. And you can stay on track with it, and you check the next day and the next day and so on. And you could see after a night of eating sugar and a night of, eating a donut and having some pizza or whatever it was that you did, you'll be like, shit, man, I'm back to ground zero. I'm not in ketosis. I got to work my way back in. Now, the cool thing is that once you do ketosis a few times, it gets a little faster to get back in there. But I like the fact that it's almost like a closed door. It's like you just like locked yourself in a room, and now you're keto, and the only way, you don't want to go back out that door. You spent the time to get into this room, and now you're in this room, and you may as well stay here and hang out and get some of the benefits. Again, one of the selling points of the ketogenic diet is what it does for you from a mental perspective. I hear a lot of people talking about like clarity, and some people talk about anxiety, some people talk about depression. I don't know how much of that has been anything that I've noticed or experienced. I've been very fortunate. I don't have anxiety, and I've been very fortunate that I've never experienced any depression in my life before at all. I just am very lucky that way. I don't even barely know what depression is. But one of the reasons why I might not even know what depression is because I've been doing a ketogenic diet of some sort since like 1994. So the ketogenic diet, it can be amazing because of how locked in you can get. I'm sitting here, I'm drinking this snake water stuff that has some ketones in it. And I went on a walk this morning, and I've been, low carb for the last several months. And I'm just flying today. I just feel like super energetic. I feel super fired up. I didn't train or run or anything today, but I did go on like a 2.5 or 3 mile walk this morning with my weighted vest on that I still have on. But I've just been like on fire all day. And a lot of that has to do with last night. It was nice. I was well rested. I got a good night of sleep. But when I'm on point with this keto diet, I'm on fire. I'm fired up. I feel really good. The other thing that the keto diet allows you to do is it allows you to it allows you to jump into fasting and jump in and out of fasting a lot easier. So I do talk about fasting a lot. And remember what I said earlier is my friend Russell, he pointed out, he said, hey, I don't think you really lost a lot of your weight, or I don't think you lost weight initially by fasting. And he's right. However, I lost about half of my weight through fasting. So I didn't really know much about fasting in the beginning. That's why I didn't do it. But as I got more and more into keto, I did start to learn about fasting. And then boom, I pulled that card out when I needed it. And so I think what's cool about what I'm sharing here today for some of you is if you wanted to, you can amplify the effects of the ketogenic diet by blending it with fasting, because you are starting out in a different place than me and you have different knowledge than me. You know that fasting can be really powerful. And I'm not talking about really multiple day fast right now. I'm just talking about 20-hour fast, 48-hour fast, that kind of thing. OMAD type diet, that style of stuff is just way easier to do when your carbohydrate, when your glucose levels are just kind of straight all day. They don't really bounce up and down. It's going to be easier to go without food because your hunger signals they're not only based off your glucose. They're not only based off your insulin. Supposedly we get hunger multiple times a day with or without food, which I find to be super fascinating. Like that's an amazing chunk of information that we just happen to get hit by these hunger pangs a couple times a day, regardless of whether we ate or not. I gotta look into that more. I gotta try to ask some other people that have researched that more and see kind of what in the hell that even means, because that is interesting. But I've found that to be true for myself. If I eat, like, let's say I had like 3 or 4 eggs in the morning, that will make me really, really hungry. If I had like 3 or 4 eggs at like 7 a.m., by like 11 a.m. or 12 a.m., man, am I hungry. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, that could be a good thing. That could be, maybe that's the metabolism being revved up a little bit. I'm not really sure, but it is interesting. As opposed to if I just didn't eat at all, when 11 comes around, yeah, I might feel some natural hunger. Like I said, the hunger is going to hit us kind of multiple times a day anyway, but it won't be as crazy as if I just had a couple eggs. Now, if at 7 a.m. or something, I had maybe 8 or 9 eggs and some butter, I don't know. That probably would keep me pretty satisfied, maybe all the way up until like 5 p.m. Because the fat calories are there, because the overall amount that's a large amount of energy. The problem with that, and one of the reasons why I choose not to do that, because I do think that that's a great strategy, is to just fill yourself up quite a bit when you wake up, is because I'm usually doing something at 9 or 12 that either requires some physicality from me or requires me to be doing what I'm doing right now. And if I'm trying to do this, it is 2 p.m. now. So I would have a decent amount of clearance from that point. But a lot of times I'm podcasting at like 10, 11, 12, or sometimes I'm lifting at 9, 10, 11, those different kinds of times. So that would kind of throw me off. But what I do think is important for some of you that I'm sharing this with today, and I'm talking about starting the ketogenic diet. And remember, we talk a lot about the ketogenic diet on the Single Digit Body Fat series. Make sure you check that out. Check out the Single Digit Body Fat series that we did with my boy Andrew Z, as well as Robert Sykes. So make sure you guys are kind of up to date on all that. Make sure you checked out all the episodes, the whole series of the Single Digit Body Fat series. Make sure you're paying attention to all that. But this is going to be the one time where I really give you guys something that's just a little different than what I've been suggesting in the past. And this is a time when you're going to start something like this. Anytime that you start this diet or anytime that you restart this diet, have at it. Eat. I want you to eat. I want you to eat. I want you to crush some food. I'd still like you to get some exercise. I'd still like you to kind of do your normal day. But wherever you can, fit in some food. We were talking about things that kind of make this convenient. And I mentioned carnivore crisps. If you don't have the money for that kind of thing, because some of these things can be a little expensive, try to buy a beef jerky. There's beef jerkies now that don't have a crazy amount of sugar. I think some of them are like 0 sugar. Look into that. A cheese stick, just a good old fashioned mozzarella cheese stick or a cheddar cheese stick. You know, these are all things that they're not hard to get. When I first started keto, and people used to give me shit for this a lot, I used to eat pepperoni. I used to eat salami. They all work. People, highly processed foods, they're gonna, they're cured or whatever. They got nitrates. They got tons of salt and all these things. It works, and it works extremely well. Are there going to be people who tell you it's a bad idea to do that, because you're doing it every day? You're not going to do it every day forever, probably. I mean, maybe some of you love that stuff that much that you will do that for a really long time. I'm not really advocating that, but it is a convenience that you can utilize. And I think that even if you were to do it every day for a while, I don't believe that it has bad health outcomes. When we get into those situations where we're eating stuff where we're not quite sure of, like a hot dog or something like that, do your best to find the best. Do your best to better sometimes is better. I like hot dogs, so I usually, if I am going to eat a hot dog, I eat Piedmontese hot dog because it's beef tips that are in the Piedmontese hot dogs. And the hot dogs are basically the fat versus the protein is quite different. In a Piedmontese hot dog, I think it's like 11 grams of fat and like 20 grams of protein, which is pretty cool. Whereas most hot dogs are like 30 grams of fat and like 8 grams of protein or something like that. But all that stuff is fair game. I don't care if it's an Oscar Mayer wiener. I don't care what it is. Eat it, and eat a lot of it. When it comes to like sausages and Polish sausage and kielbasa and some of these things, I don't know if you guys ever had these things. My mom used to make kielbasa all the time. It was just absolutely amazing. And I mean, the fat on that thing is like, I want to say it's like maybe 30 grams of fat and like 6 or 7 protein. Like it's screwed up, but it's a great keto food. So really seriously, just have at it. In terms of like things like nuts, because people have a lot of questions about nuts, almonds and cashews and walnuts and all these things and seeds and so on, they're all okay. I would just try to pay attention to what they're roasted in. How are they getting the salt to stick to these things? I mean, if they're frying these things in some sort of shitty oil and then they're throwing salt on them, they're probably not super ideal. But if you happen to stop at a gas station because you're hungry and you're on the keto diet, you're not sure what the hell you're doing yet, and you eat some almonds and they're roasted and it has some freaking weird oil on it, don't worry about it. Like, honestly, just do not worry about it. The thing that you're worried about, first of all, you're not worried about anything because you're listening to me, because I'm never worried about nothing, and you shouldn't be worried about shit either. I ain't worried about shit. You shouldn't be worried about shit. No one should be worried about shit. There's things that we can do stuff for, and there's things that we can't. The things that we can do stuff for, we're working on it. The things we can't do anything for, fuck it. Right? So we ain't worried about nothing. However, that what your focus should be getting into ketosis. And your focus should be fat and protein, fat and protein, fat and protein, fat and protein. What did coach say? Fat and protein, fat and protein, fat and protein. What did coach say? Fat and protein, fat and protein, fat and protein. You can only remember what the coach said. Like, you can only remember a couple things that he said. You know, your coach told you to run a post pattern, right? It's like, okay, a post pattern. I know I'm going to run straight. Then I'm going to run an angle towards the post, and hopefully I'll look over my shoulder and the ball will be right there. You're going to run a very particular pattern, but you can't remember your coach telling you to do 8 different things, right? So I just want you to hone in on that one. Okay, there's 2 missions there, right? It's like fat and protein. But that's a really easy mission: fat and protein, meat and eggs. Just think that the whole day. If something doesn't have fat and protein in it, it's not for you. You want to eat stuff that has fat and protein in it. The whole every time that you eat, it should have fat and protein in it. I saw a post today where somebody basically said, fat and protein, it's going to fill you up. And I was like, this is the most genius post ever. It's going to, not only is it going to fill you up, but it's going to taste really good. You have a protein requirement every day. You have a fat requirement every day. If you meet both of those, you'll be pretty satiated and satisfied. There's a little bit of a small difference between your appetite and your hunger. Hunger is like maybe this thing that sort of wavers and it sort of lies to us. But then there's like your actual appetite. How much food do you really, how much food, I want you to answer this question for me inside your own head right now. How much food do you need? How much food can you be okay with? What would be an amount that you could have? Would it be 10% less than what you eat now? 20% less? 30%? Or would it be more like 50% less? If you ate 50% less of what you eat right now, what would you look like? I know not everybody listening is fat. So that might be extreme, right? But you kind of see my point. These numbers that we multiply, to try to get our calories or whatever, people are like, multiply your body weight by 16. It's like, no, don't fucking multiply your body weight by 16. Multiply your body weight by like 10. That's about as many calories as you need. And that's a lot. That could be quite a bit at some point, right? Again, this is a Saturday school, but this Saturday school is also to promote the single digit body fat series. When we're talking about being single digit body fat, it ain't always going to be easy. And I do realize we do want a metabolic rate that is like high. We don't want a low one. However, for most people to be able to get into single digit body fat, it's going to be challenging. And the amount of food that you're going to require to start to get yourself to that level is probably going to be reduced quite a bit. I mean, I know some exceptional people. I know some people with some outstanding physiques. And at some point, they have to adhere to a lot of these rules as well. Even our good buddy Nsima, who's 250 and in amazing shape. I think at one point, he went and got like a DEXA scan and he was like around 7 or 8% body fat at like 245 or 250. Unbelievable. That's absolutely remarkable. Nsima doesn't do keto, but he's extremely active. He lifts. You guys see him doing the rope flow, see him doing all kinds of shit. He's doing jujitsu all the time. He doesn't eat a crazy amount of carbohydrates. If he does overeat, you know what he does? He fasts the next day. It's pretty common. I don't know what he's doing right now at this moment. From a food perspective, he's probably stuffing his face somewhere right now, actually. Probably eating some pizza or something. But under normal circumstances, when he's on point and things are going good for him, he's eating like 1 meal a day. So even though he's not practicing, he's not necessarily like, full keto, he's not, he eats fat and protein often. And I think that this is a great way for people to not only lose weight, but a great way for them to be able to control their body weight for the rest of their life. This is a great way for you to control your body weight for the rest of your life. We got to do something, man. We really do, right? We got to do something about these food cravings. They're insane. They're absurd. I have friends that are completely convinced that they're 100% addicted to food. And they could be right. I don't know exactly how they feel. I do know how I felt when I was 330 pounds, and I felt like I was addicted to food. But after I started making a commitment back into the ketogenic diet again, and once I started to really remove myself away from those sugars, I was like, I don't know. I don't know how addicted I was. I don't know how addicted I was. I don't know how stuck I was. It was just a matter of making a decision, making a choice. And once I made the choice and once I started to get myself into ketosis, it got easier and easier to be further and further away from those sugars. And so I understand that it still could have been an addiction for sure, because the definition of addiction is vast, and it hits a lot of different points, right? And but like something needs to be done, right? Like we need to figure out a way. How do we just at least, maybe an addiction is something that is like a disease, and maybe it's very, very difficult to completely eradicate, because maybe I still have some of that addiction in me. Maybe I'm filling it in with other things that are sweet that just maybe aren't as calorically dense anymore. That's a fair statement. I think I do. I think I'm guilty as charged. I love having things that are sweet. I'll drink water. I got no problem with that. But almost everything I drink almost the whole day is either like a protein shake or a hydration something, or like I'm always putting stuff in everything. I'm obsessive compulsive about it. I love it. I really enjoy it. But I was able to break free from being ruled by food. Food had like a spell on me. And even though I was getting big and strong and everything for powerlifting, yeah, that was cool and that was fun, and it did a lot of great things for me. I got stuck. I really got stuck, all the way to the point where I started developing the habit of eating really late at night. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd storm through my pantry like a bear and I would just eat whatever I could find. And you know what? That still happens to this day, where I'll wake up in the middle of the night. But now it's different. I might have a protein shake or a protein bar or something like that. It's not anything what it used to be. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and my wife would be like, what the hell happened last night? There's like a Ben & Jerry's, in the garbage. There's a Snickers wrapper over here, peanut butter cup wrapper over there. I'm like, I don't even know. So I have been very fortunate to be able to break away from that behavior, but that behavior was severed by distancing myself from carbohydrate. And even just last night when I was talking to my wife about carbs and stuff, and I was like, you know what? It is the winter time, and sometimes in the winter, I have different cravings than I might have in the summertime. In the summertime, I tend to like want more fruit and stuff like that. But anyway, last night I was like, you know what? I'm not really even sure at this point if I'm really going to even bother to go back to carbs, just because like this feels so good. Then I said, hey, never say never. Maybe I shouldn't speak in absolutes like that, because maybe when the summer comes around, maybe I'll feel a little bit different. But I got to tell you that it feels amazing. Like the thing that feels the most amazing to me isn't necessarily that I lost weight. The thing that feels the most amazing to me is my mind and my brain. The places that I can go to, the places I can get to via my brain because of the challenges I've given myself is the coolest part of the entire thing. And not being so, I still really love food. I still think about food a lot. I talk about food a lot, right? I'm talking about this stuff in these podcasts, in these videos, and everything I do. I'm always talking about food. It's because I love it. I'm obsessed with it. But it's felt really nice to cut and to sever this tie to especially a lot of those sugars and especially a lot of those highly processed foods, because it feels like a trap. And then going deeper into it and doing fasting, and then going deeper into it and doing dry fasting and being like, you know what? I'm not messing with any of this. I don't want this drink. I don't want this food. I'm just going to be right here. I'm just going to sit in it. And, you know, people talk a lot about how hard it is and how difficult it is to like be in the moment these days. If you want to learn and you want to feel being in the moment, try some dry fasting. Try just, you know, don't start with dry fasting. Do a 24-hour regular fast with hydration, with liquid, like just do a normal fast, you know, just look up any old thing somewhere and pick some sort of fasting protocol, but basically just don't eat any food for 24 hours. You give that a shot and see how that feels. The next opportunity after that, a couple days later, try a dry fast. And it's hard to explain. You're going to learn a lot of shit about yourself. I am completely surprised because I've done kind of a handful of dry fasting now. And I did one just the other day. It was only like 20 or 22 hours worth of dry fasting. And I was just like, this is absurd. Like, I don't need nearly the liquid that I thought I did. But it is the winter time. So, you know, I'm not sweating as much and all those kind of factors are in there too. But I'm like, you know what? It's just amazing how many times that has happened to me in my life where I thought one thing and then it was another. I thought one thing and then it was another, like time and time and time again. And I'm like, damn, I can't believe that. I'm still just learning so much and I'm so excited to be sharing all this information with you guys. I'm going to shut the hell up because I've been rambling on forever. We got anything else over there, Ryan?
That's all I got.
Awesome. Hopefully you guys learned something. This is a great place to start if you're trying a ketogenic diet. Remember just the real basics of it. Protein and fat. Eat your protein and eat your fat. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.